This was a journey of new horizons. A group of us coming together to share in nature connection, love, and spirit. Experience real healing, combining the new with the old. We shared stories, learned new techniques. We celebrated and danced together. We laughed together. We learned new games. And from the Naro Bushmen, we learned about food, animals, and tracking. We learned from other experts the art of bird language and animal communication. And yes, we witnessed the impossible made possible. This is our group. You'll learn more about us later. Let me start by introducing Dr. Nicole Appelian, or Nix as her friends call her. She's the one that organized the whole trip. Nix is an incredibly smart woman, beautiful with an infectious smile, and as I found out, you can't take a bad picture of her, even if you surprise her. Nix has been working in Botswana for nearly 20 years. She speaks the Bushman language and is currently working on a book to catalog and preserve their knowledge. We thank her for that. And so do the Bushmen. Also joining us on the trip was John Young, known to many as the first student of world-renowned naturalist and tracker Tom Brown Jr. John has dedicated his whole life to nature education, connection, and mentoring. He's also an expert in bird language and tracking, as well as being a top-notch musician and storyteller. From the Johannesburg airport, we took a flight to a small town called Maun. Once we arrived, we checked into a quaint little bed and breakfast, unloaded all of our gear, settled in, and received an introduction from John and Nix. Since this was a day off, we took the time to relax and unwind and get to know one another. We even had a lesson from Nix in how to speak the Naro language.
The first one is a dental. Okay, like that. Nai means wildebeest.
The next morning, we boarded 2 small prop planes for our well-anticipated trip into the Kalahari. Gazing out the window of the plane, we could all feel our excitement growing. We were getting closer to our destination, a part of the Kalahari called Grassland. And as we landed, neither John nor Nicole were prepared for what, or should I say who, was waiting for us at the makeshift airport in the middle of the Kalahari Desert. For the first time ever, according to Nix, the Bushmen were waiting for us.
Okay folks, welcome to Grassland. We've just got a couple of minutes before we can shut the engine down, so please just stay seated till we open the back door and we can jump out. Okay, thank you very much.
And then the dancing began. What an introduction. None of us had experienced anything like that before.
D-U-M-E-L-A, Dumela.
We boarded a small vehicle and took a short ride to our lodging area, where we were met with what else? More music.
Do we get out? Yep.
I felt right at home. After more orientation, we met Franz. Franz was our translator and guide. He was a total gentleman with a beautiful smile and full of knowledge. And Alvain, wow, what a guy. Not only an expert tracker and guide, he was the only one of us that got a picture with all the bush women. Well, if you got it, I guess. I'd heard stories about Alvain's amazing abilities in nature, but he was even better in real life. He spotted this chameleon while driving a Jeep down a dusty road at over 60 miles an hour. And of course, being the gentleman that he is, he backed up and caught it so we could all see it. We were glad he did. But the main attraction was the Naro Bushmen. And of course, the bush women. The stories were written all over their faces, full of wisdom, character, and of course, charm. Even the bush babies seemed to have a story to tell, full of innocence, wisdom, beauty. It was good to see that there was a next generation preparing to continue the legacy of these wonderful people. As we sat with them, we became acquainted by sharing stories. Through Franz, our translator, we told him about ourselves and our homeland and learned a lot about them and theirs. We shared our names and learned theirs, some of them which were very difficult to pronounce. Except for do, we could say that one. And then there was Gouda, the one I called the comedian. What a character. Everyone loved him. He never missed the opportunity to make all of us laugh. The leader of the Naro was this man, the wisest of men, said to be over 80 years old, yet full of energy, full of wisdom, full of love. His name is Hanama, tribal elder and healer. When Hanama was younger, he was spirited aside by the horns of a hemsbuck. Left for dead by his tribe, he showed up the next day with the animal. It was then everyone knew this man was special. Now when Hanama speaks, everyone listens. We performed a few songs for the Naro, which they seemed to enjoy. But it was the song of the coyote that brought everyone to their feet. When the Naro people dance, they dance. Everyone free to express themselves as they choose. It was beautiful to see. They told us that we had to carry that guitar with us everywhere and play the coyote song every day. So, we did.
A little Hawaiian flair.
generous people. By our standards, food is scarce in the Kalahari, but they openly shared with us techniques for finding and harvesting food wherever they went. And although it appeared as if there was very little, they shared with us everything they had. One afternoon, after collecting seeds, plants, potatoes, and roots, we brought everything and everyone together for an impromptu lunch with the Bushmen. Once all the goods were collected and set out for display, the Bushmen, with the help of Charles and myself, made a fire using a hand drill technique. But then I noticed something a little peculiar. What were those black and yellow objects laying on the ground? No, they couldn't be. Or maybe they could. I had seen John Young and some of the other men knocking things out of the trees and then picking them up off the ground. As I got a closer look, yes, they were beetles, jewel beetles. What were they going to do with them? The women were pulling the legs off and storing the beetles in their pouches. They pulled the legs off so that the beetles couldn't crawl out. Yes, it was a little different. But after they roasted them on the fire, I had to try one.
In the head.
I need some water.
Hey, just a little bit of the head and this little bit of the tail.
Let me see.
Did I get enough?
No, cut the head here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, here.
To the hip, but not the thorax.
Yeah. Then you eat it.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want some?
It's delicious.
All right.
I love it.
Very tasty.
That's not bad.
You want me to show you what to do?
I don't want another one.
Well, at least I can say I tried it. We also got to witness these beautiful babies having their very first taste of chocolate. It was pretty interesting to witness. The babies weren't quite sure what to think of it, and neither were we. We were asked to bring gifts for the Bushmen, and believe it or not, chocolate was at the top of the list. These two siblings were very cute, checking out each other's reactions to the strange new taste. But soon enough, the verdict was clear. Not only did they like it, like most of us, they wanted more. The Naro really know how to enjoy themselves, and it was nice to see that all the way on the other side of the world, we share the common bond of the simple game, jump rope. Although the game wasn't as simple for them as it might be for us. They had to make their rope out of animal hide, twisting it over and over to make it supple enough to use for the game. Good old Dustin, our representative, showed them how it's done. This simple game played by the women of tossing a ball back and forth really intrigued me, not because of the mechanics of the game, but because of the rhythm in which they played it.
7 rhythms.
Listen.
Throwing on 6 or 5, catching on 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Catch on 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, throw, catch. 1, 2, 3, 4, throw, catch. 1, 2, 3, 4.
That is, until they lost the ball.
Into the hut. Goes into the hut.
This game, mostly played by the men, consisted of throwing a stick on top of a pile of dirt covered in straw so that the stick would ricochet off the straw and soar through the air like a spear.
Oh, yes.
It was more difficult than it looked,
Nice.
but of course, we all had to try it anyway.
A stick.
So it has to do that.
No, when you hit it on the ground.
We shared with them a game of our own, Frisbee. They seemed to really like it.
Oh, he's got some moves.
Now, this was really cool. A one-stringed instrument made from a tree branch and a wire. It had an upside-down bowl attached to one end, which served as a resonator. The women played the instrument all together with little twigs. One lady would change the tone of the string by lifting the bowl up and down. Another woman changed it by touching it on and off with a piece of metal. The rhythms were very complex. Music seemed to be a very important part of the Bushmen's lives. What often started with just a few usually ended with the whole tribe joining in.
See the baby dance?
And Dustin added a little blues guitar to the Bushman song. Unfortunately, the government prevents the Naro from hunting on their own land. But still, they shared with us some of their techniques. And the great thing about lessons with the Bushmen is that they often come with demonstrations. While we were there, they were given meat to eat, which they immediately cut into strips and hung in the trees to dry. This would make the meat last longer. And although they weren't allowed to hunt, they were allowed to trap small game. So, right in front of our eyes, they made a trap for us. Using vegetation, sticks, and small saplings and everything else around them, they constructed a working snare in just a few minutes. It was quite impressive. Even in his old age, Hanama led the way, often correcting the others if they did anything not to his liking. Once the trap was complete, they gave us another demonstration.
Oh, there he is. Okay.
One of the Bushmen represented the animal about to trigger the trap.
Here comes the stimbuck. Okay.
The others were the hunters ready to charge the animal. I was about to get run over and hadn't realized it.
Just watch out there. They're going to bump you up when they're running.
Okay.
Yeah, they're going to come
run
around.
fast.
So they're hiding. Hunters waiting. He has to step through there. Hey, hey, hey.
And they did all of it just for us. Tracking is a very important part of the Naro culture, and they are some of the best in the world. It was a joy and an honor to learn from them. They taught us all types of tracks, like dogs and hyena, as well as hoofed animals, like the beautiful impala or the tiny springbuck. Here's one I had never seen before, the outline of a bird laying in the sand. I'd also never seen lion tracks in the wild before. They were huge. One way to help recognize cat tracks are by the 3 bulbs at the bottom of the heel pad. This particular track also showed smaller critters walking by in the upper left. Here, Nix places her hand beside the track for size comparison. This is a huge cat, one I would not want to run into in the wild. And even larger are these elephant tracks, made by these large elephant feet. If you look closely, you can see my shoe print to the top right of the tracks. And they told us this was a small elephant. I placed my foot next to this beautiful hippo track, and what some people call the final track. On one afternoon, the men got to go with Gouda and Alvain to track a cheetah. That's right, a cheetah. And we tracked it for about 3 hours. 2 of the young Naro joined us, and we could tell right away they knew their stuff. Following Alvain and the Bushmen was fun, but also eye-opening. They could track as fast as they could move. And the tracks, they weren't that easy to see, at least not for me. Sometimes when the light shifted, they jumped out a little bit more, but most of them were nearly invisible. I felt like a champion every time I saw one. I kept getting left behind because I wanted to take pictures. When Gouda pointed out this track, a puff adder, one of the most dangerous snakes in Africa, I stayed close after that. It made me think about earlier when we'd heard the birds going crazy. We ran over to see what it was, and lo and behold, when I focused my eyes and looked into the tree, we saw what all the commotion was about. There was a snake right there. I don't do well with snakes, so after that, I stayed real close to Gouda, only stepping where he stepped. And I paid attention to the birds. Although we got close to the cheetah, we never got to see it. When we reached the fence line marking the end of the Bushman's property, we saw tracks of where the cheetah snuck under the fence. Oh well, we still learned a lot, and it was a joy and an honor tracking with Gouda and the boys. A day I will never forget. On the way back, we met up with the rest of our group and stopped by a lion sanctuary where it just happened to be feeding time. A few times a week, large animals would be brought in, butchered, and fed to the lions. It was pretty amazing seeing pieces thrown over the fence and the lions going crazy for their choice pieces of meat. We witnessed the hierarchy being played out as most of the lions had to wait for the king to get his first piece. Although these lions were in a large fenced-in area, you could still feel their power, and it was easily understood why they are called the King of the Jungle. It was also feeding time for the leopards. We were told that we might not get to see them, for they are a little bit more shy than the lions. But I guess it was our lucky day. The wild dogs, they were just that, wild. But as wild as they were calm enough to let us be in the cage with them while they were fed. They didn't get the choice pieces the lions got, but they seemed to enjoy it just as much.
Can you stay that side?
Not only the animals got fed, the insects took advantage of feeding time also. One insect in particular really grabbed our attention. The dung beetle. This little guy, or girl I should say, was really interesting and determined. These beetles would congregate on the dung, roll the dung into large balls, and push it with their hind feet long distances across the land. At some point, the beetle would place a single egg in the middle of the dung and leave it to hatch.
It's rolling into a ball.
Watching the beetle work was a little hypnotic. It felt like we could have continued watching forever.
Yeah, that's a good memory. That is a good memory.
This handsome fellow is Valentine. He's in charge of the lion preserve. And his beautiful companion is Serga, whom he rescued and raised from a cub. We spent quite a while with them, learning about their lives and about Valentine's work with Serga and the other lions. While we were there was a movie being made about these two, for he is the only one known to be able to walk with his lion through the middle of the Kalahari Desert without the need of a leash. Now remember, Serga does have a wild side. There's actual footage of her making a kill and then Valentine sitting on top of the kill and feeding it to Serga. This is definitely a first. This is how they greet each other.
Oh my goodness. Oh, wow. Oh my goodness.
You weren't ready for that, were you? Well, neither were we. Let's watch it again.
Oh my goodness.
Can you feel the love? Of course you can. They definitely have a unique bond. Serga was so focused on Valentine that she didn't even know we were there. But when she saw us, you could see her instincts kick in. Although I had no fear for my safety, I was glad we were in the Jeep. The highlights of the trip for me were the 2 nights we got to witness and participate in the Naro's trance dance. This consisted of the women and children sitting around the fire singing and clapping, while the men, with their staffs in hand, danced around them. It was explained to us that everyone's job was to raise the level of energy to a certain height so that Hanuma, the healer, could do his work. Even the young boys had a job to do. On this second night of the dance, they did it earlier in the evening so that we could see more clearly what was going on. As you can see here, JR and Dustin joining the Bushmen around the fire. Bending over is Hanuma giving John Young a healing. One of the women has to assist Hanuma as he makes his way over to Nicole. Yes, that's me bringing up the rear. Here, they do the dance of the hunt. The long sticks, representing the horns of the hemsbuck, which Hanuma spooks, is being chased by the hunters. The hemsbuck has a little fun with JR. The younger boys represent dogs. It was explained to us that the hunters will allow the dogs to tire out the animal before they move in for the kill, which they do right now. No worries, it was just a show. No humans or animals were harmed in this demonstration. The main part of the trance dance, at least for me, was the healing that was taking place. You can see Hanuma, the healer, placing his hands on the front and back of Nix. At one point, Nix's whole body was shaking uncontrollably. Later, she told us that she had completely left her body.
I also started shaking.
Yeah.
And I wasn't in my body. I was out of my body.
On occasion, even Hanama seemed to leave his body. He would start grunting, dancing, and moving through and around the circle. And remember, he is in his 80s. Sometimes, other members of the tribe would have to lead Hanama, guide him from person to person. I wasn't sure if Hanama was weak, deep in trance, or both. All I know is, being that close to him, I could feel his power, and I could also see it in his heaving stomach. Something real was happening. Spending those 2 nights with the Naro Bushmen around the fire, I knew that we had witnessed something special. Something most people will never get to see. The next day, our final day, things were back to normal. It was time to dance the coyote one final time. And when we finally did have to say goodbye, it was a mixture of happiness and sadness, all mixed together. The next 4 days of the trip could be described as animals, animals, and more animals. Some which were very difficult to see. We flew to another part of the Kalahari where we were met with, that's right, more music. When we arrived at our new location, we were met with song and drinks. And as we got situated, we introduced ourselves to our new guides and staff. Flo, the head chef, was an amazing little woman, and I do mean little. She was shorter than me, but her food was larger than life. 3 times a day, Flo and her staff would make amazing meals, with special consideration for our gluten-free and vegetarian clientele, complete with candlelight dinners, wine, juice, and desserts. They really left you wanting for nothing. They even did our laundry every day. Now this cool guy is Brian. Brian also had amazing abilities. Expert tracker, bird language, guide. He was also the owner of Capture Africa, the company that took care of us for the next 4 days. And this beautiful woman, now she is amazing. Her name is Anna, and she specializes in something a little different. It's called interspecies communication. In other words, she can communicate with animals in a real way. She's known as the animal communicator, and there's a movie about her by the same name. You need to find and watch this movie. In there, it shows her communicating with wild baboons, birds, monkeys, and even fish. But what will really blow you away is how she handles this black leopard. With Anna, John, Nicole, Alvain, and Brian, we could only imagine what the next 4 days were going to be like. We were housed in these tents. That's right in the middle of the Kalahari bush. But they were luxurious as far as tents go, complete with toilets, showers, and wonderful beds. Each morning, We would split into two groups, hop in two Jeeps, and ride around until we saw something or heard something. In many cases, it was the birds who told us where to look.
One in the back.
They do have different patterns to each
Yeah.
And our wonderful guides, they made sure we didn't miss anything.
It's quite fun sometimes if you get close up, to see them.
This was definitely my first time seeing zebra in the wild. And these Burchell's zebra were neat because they had brown stripes as well as black. We caught this one scratching his butt up against a tree trunk. It seemed like he was really about to get into it, but then he noticed us watching. Yes, we see you, buddy. At one point, we looked up to our left to see what all the racket was. It was a squirrel yelling at a bird, telling it to get off of its branch. The bird seemed to pay it no mind. Every day after hours of riding around, we would stop for a break. Brian and Alvain would pull out refreshments, wine, juice, other drinks, dried fruit and nuts. It was wonderful. It was a chance to relax and reflect, as well as ask our guides more questions. On one occasion, Alvain quietly called us over and asked us to look into the distance. We saw an animal looking back at us. Can you tell what it is? When it saw us looking at it, it crouched down, then stood up, turned, and slowly walked away, looking back over its shoulder. Do you know what it is? That's right, a hyena. I'd always been told that hyenas were fierce, wild, crazy animals, and I'm sure they can be, but the ones we saw were docile. They appeared relaxed and gentle. We sat by this hyena den for about an hour, and we were thankful every time they sat up, allowing us to take pictures of these beautiful animals. They were gentle. They would literally walk right around our Jeep, brushing up against our tires. Again, I'm sure they can be the fierce animals that they're claimed to be, but on this day, they were very calm. Our good friend JR claimed that one of them bit him on the foot. Now, I don't know if that was a true story, but it sure was a good one. We all had a good chuckle listening to JR. I do know this. He better be glad it wasn't this guy that bit him in the foot. He would have been telling a different story. The birds. The amazing birds. It was nice to see Alvain get so excited about this Pell's fishing owl. He said he had never seen one in this area. Africa has amazing birds. Some that look familiar, and some like I'd never seen before. Birds are the eyes and ears of any area, and they're always talking to each other. It seemed like most of these birds came in pairs. Even the vultures. It appeared as if Mother Nature spilled paint all over this beautiful lilac-breasted roller. And even in these blurry pictures of the bird in flight, its beauty still shines through. goodness, the colors are amazing. This glossy starling was having a fit with this worm. I took a picture of this wildebeest one evening as it was grazing by the lake, and there just happened to be a lightning storm in the clouds above. I kept taking pictures until I could capture the lightning. I was lucky enough to capture these shots. Warthogs. Funny little creatures. This was the first time I'd ever seen one. They're actually pretty cool looking with their short little bodies, short little legs, and short, sharp little tusks, which you wouldn't want to get in the way of. One day, we were sitting around waiting to start a workshop with Anna on animal communication. In the distance, we saw something moving through the trees. They were monkeys, but because they were so far away, it was difficult to get clear pictures. But as soon as we started the workshop with Anna, the monkeys came closer and closer. Before we knew it, these vervet monkeys were right on the edge of our campsite. It was pretty amazing. Anna said it was normal. I wondered if she had anything to do with it. We had arrived in Africa just after the rainy season, and many of the roads were covered in water. So one day, instead of riding, we took a walk through the water. It was actually quite fun and refreshing. I'd never seen lily pads like that before, and the flowers were gorgeous. The only problem was, earlier, we'd seen crocodile, and as we walked, we could hear hippopotamus. And although Alvain was leading the way with rifle in hand, I stayed close to Anna. As soon as we reached dry land, we were surrounded by a swarm of dragonflies. I mean, it seemed like hundreds of them. We were mesmerized. This video doesn't quite capture it, but hopefully you get the idea. Soon after, Alvain whispered for me to come closer with my camera. There was a lechwe sticking its head out of the bush, looking right at us. We all snuck up and stared at the animal, who was staring back, for about 20 minutes. After the animal gained our trust, it took off running through the water. I was lucky enough to get these pictures. So beautiful. Alvain told us that the lechwe wasn't running because it was afraid of us, but because it needed the momentum to get through the water. Once it started walking away, we changed our direction so the animal didn't think we were following him. Out of all the animals we saw, there was something about being so close to the large ones. Can you recognize this one hiding in the bush? That's right, the African elephant. It was so nice to see them in their natural habitat. I mean, they would walk right by our Jeeps. They knew we were there. They would look right at us, but they acted like they didn't mind. I was sure glad about that. And elephants have eyelashes, long ones. I never realized that before. There were many baby elephants also. It was nice seeing the mothers with their young. The only things larger and possibly more beautiful than the elephants were the landscapes they existed upon. The beautiful sun, painting its way through the vast skies, bathed the landscape in glorious beauty. Giving life to all things below, providing the perfect canvas for the trees to tell their stories. If only we would listen. Knowing that this beautiful, wonderful, amazing place, provider of life to animals, insects, trees, and plants, and a whole race of people was being stolen from the Bushmen right in front of our eyes, caused everyone on our trip to want to do everything possible to stop it from happening. And although our journey to Africa began as a trip of pleasure, a more important mission awakened in all of us. It was clear we must help save the Bushmen and their way of life.
I stepped off a little plane and we were greeted by the Bushmen with that beautiful song and dance. My heart was bursting with love and I had a constant smile on my face.
Never forget the laughter brought on by crotalaria, bagworms, and the rare featherbacks. The rhythmic dancing around a fire, the inhalation of wonder brought on by sight after sight after sight. But mostly I know I'll just never forget the love that's forever etched in my heart of that place and the people who shared their days with me.
Just waking up to the music of the animals in the morning, or visiting with the gentle, soulful bushman. How do I convey the heart of this beautiful world? How?
For Barbara and me both, this trip to Africa was the best trip we've ever taken by far. For me personally, it was like a deep, blissful, enlivening breath, and I'm still drawing inspiration and nourishment from it some 6 months later.
Africa is where connection all started. Out of nothing, our ancestors came and then spread throughout the world. Through primordial connection, we all came together and reclaimed our birthright. Through Hanama, the elder bushman, the birds telling us where the mongoose ran and the black mamba slithered. Together, we all joined in pure conscious love, the love that runs through everything.
I don't exactly remember how I thought about things before visiting Africa and the Bushmen. I just know that it changed me in ways I can't fully voice. Spending time with the Naro and experiencing their connection to nature and each other and being entirely open-hearted with us, I'm still processing it.
Meeting the Bushmen, these loving people with their power of empathy and their undescribable power of presence and vastness and knowledge, and their enormous cohesion in their relationship to the surrounding was for me like a long-sought desired dream coming true, like coming home.